I'm the best example of what I don't want you to do.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the celebrities whose life with famous parents wasn't all silver spoons and opportunity.
We've had all sorts of men in our family. We've had horse thieves and one-man bands and alcoholics.
Number 10, Angelina Jolie.
So is this kind of a family affair for you tonight?
Yes, it seems to be, yes.
This movie star and philanthropist was once Hollywood's wild child, the daughter of Oscar winner Jon Voight and actress Marceline Bertrand, yes, but Angelina Jolie's turbulent early life was marked by her father's abandonment and her own propensity for risky behaviors. Her relationship with Voight would be rocky for many years, beginning when Voight left his family when Jolie wasn't even 1 year old.
I've had my share of things that have made me feel hard to speak too much about it, but just overwhelmed or broken.
In the time before her stardom, Jolie struggled with antisocial behaviors, mental health issues, and substance use. The refreshingly honest actress has always been open about her battles, but her youth is proof that being born to fame isn't necessarily a cushion against hard living.
Kind of always would see people with kids or married or in love and thought, that's great. That's not my life. And I wish I could have that, but I'm never going to have that.
Number 9, Lisa Marie Presley.
Yeah, how does it make you feel when you go there?
It depends. Sad, that type of thing.
Oh, really? It brings back sad feelings for you?
Well, good and bad. It's sort of a beautiful sadness, I guess you could say.
Being raised by the most famous rock star of the era might sound glamorous, but Lisa Marie Presley was still very young when her parents separated, and her father's untimely death in 1977, when she was 9 years old, marked a tragic turning point.
It was totally devastating to her, and I think that she in some ways spent her life grieving him, and it definitely dictated her life and her story.
Yes, Presley eventually followed in her father's footsteps to become a singer in her own right, but her journey included some shocking abuse. In her posthumous memoir, From Here to the Great Unknown, Presley went into detail about the continually and seriously inappropriate behavior of her mother's boyfriend, actor and model Michael Edwards, allegations which relate also to some of Edwards' own disturbing comments about Lisa Marie in his 1988 memoir.
It was a battle, that one.
Really? Because you would think once you said it to your mom, she would just go, hey, I'm protecting my daughter.
Well, no, she did. She threw him out, but it was a bit of a, it was a bit of a situation.
Number 8, Wynonna and Ashley Judd.
The last thing I said to her was, I love you, which I'm grateful for that, because that hasn't always been the case.
After years of struggling as a single mother, Naomi Judd finally made good in country music, but fame wasn't always her family's friend. Naomi had 2 daughters, Wynonna and Ashley, but the music split the family. Naomi and Wynonna toured the world throughout the 1980s as the Judds, while Ashley was left behind and left out.
I know that toward the end, what ended up becoming the end of her life, she was feeling some guilt and shame about her parenting.
Ashley Judd spoke in depth about how painful this period was for her in her 2011 memoir, All That Is Bitter and Sweet. She would later embark on her acting career and put her fame and resources behind charities for vulnerable women and children. But the relationships between the 3 Judd women were always incredibly strained.
I mean, this is kind of a hard word, but I hope you know how I mean it. Malign, it's because you weren't talking about the core thing that you wanted to talk about.
Number 7, Jane Fonda.
Maybe you and I should have the kind of relationship that we're supposed to have.
What kind of relationship is that?
Well, like a father and a daughter.
Her father was an incredibly famous all-American movie star. Her mother was a socialite with a tragic past, whose mental health issues saw her hospitalized. Jane Fonda was only 12 years old when her mother took her own life.
If you have a parent who is not capable of showing up, not capable of reflecting you back through eyes of love, it has a big impact on your sense of self.
And as a child, you always think it was your fault.
Although she had resources and received a boarding school education, Fonda struggled with her self-image and mental health from her time at school until well into adulthood. She cites her father, Henry Fonda's, often cold and harsh assessments of her worth as one of the reasons why she fell into some early and damaging patterns. Fortunately, the two were able to make amends later in life.
It's one of the most important things about getting older is being able to go back with a forgiving heart and understanding they did the best they could, you know, and forgiving them.
Number 6, Mia Farrow.
I was born in Beverly Hills, California, in just about the prettiest house that you could possibly imagine, with a beautiful garden and a swimming pool.
The daughter of actress Maureen O'Sullivan and director John Farrow, Mia Farrow was one of 7 siblings in a household of Hollywood royalty. But her fairy tale upbringing ended with a traumatic bout of polio when she was 9 years old, which left her in quarantine for nearly a month.
Mia was lucky. After a few weeks, it was clear she would not die and would not be paralyzed. Her father was able to bring her home, but to a home scorched by fear.
A series of further tragedies struck the family in her teenage years. Her illness, her brother's death in a plane crash, her father's substance use disorder, and subsequent death of a heart attack. They all occurred before she turned 18 years old. Ultimately, it was the financial burden of her father's death that spurred Mia Farrow onto an acting career of her own.
I realistically could have and intended to go to college, go to medical school, get a degree, become a pediatrician, and go and work in either Africa or Southeast Asia. That was the dream.
Number 5, Carrie Fisher. Despite a wry sense of humor about a childhood that she'd often admit was unconventional, Carrie Fisher perhaps had plenty of reason to look back and ask some questions.
What can you really say about my father? I'm asking you.
Fisher's parents were the actress Debbie Reynolds and the singer Eddie Fisher. When Carrie was 2 years old, her parents went through a highly publicized divorce, during the aftermath of which her father remarried to her mother's best friend, Elizabeth Taylor. Carrie Fisher's experiences with bipolar disorder began during her childhood and adolescence.
I like being manic.
Really?
At a certain point, though, no, because you're peerless. I mean, you know, there's who else is like that? And you're a spectacle. And even though I grew up in a focus-pulling, spectacle-like family, it's fine, but if you can't turn it off, if you have no vote in it, it's not great.
She would go on to develop substance use disorder. She always recalled these events with a crisp and gracious wit, with many of her struggles notably covered in her 1987 debut novel, Postcards from the Edge.
My entire life could be summed up in one phrase, and that is, if my life wasn't funny, it would just be true. And that is completely unacceptable.
Number 4, Liza Minnelli. Liza Minnelli's mother, Judy Garland's story, has been held up as a classic cautionary tale for fame, and in many respects, a Hollywood tragedy. Overall, Minnelli has always been sure to emphasize the happy times she spent with her mother, but still, it certainly wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
I've collected things now from all over the world that have been confiscated in hotels. Because we never paid the bill and they confiscated, so we just leave. See, the trick was to get out before they discovered, you know, that we didn't have the loot.
Garland's later career was marked by illness, failed projects, and symptoms of substance use disorder that reportedly began during her time at MGM. She passed away in 1969 when Liza was only 23.
What do you miss most about your mother?
Oh, her humor, you know? And his support.
Minnelli saw her experience as mostly normal because she only had other Hollywood families to compare it to, but her chaotic upbringing perhaps contributed in part to her own problems later in life, including with alcohol and substance use disorders.
It was dramatic on other people's standards, but we didn't live on other people's standards. Nobody in Hollywood did.
Number 3, Robert Downey Jr.
It's a bit of a foray into trying to understand your dad.
You're still young.
Do you feel like you understand him now?
I have a feeling I'll know a lot more when we're done.
As the son of the countercultural filmmaker Robert Downey Sr., the Iron Man actor was perhaps always destined to have a less than conventional childhood, and it had a lasting impact. Robert Downey Jr. grew up fast, and not just because his father introduced him to acting at the age of 5. In fact, it was also his father who introduced him to illicit substances.
It's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I'm not going to tell you the specifics because you get too scared.
Years later, RDJ would explain that this was his father's way of bonding with him, but such early exposure led to a substance use disorder that plagued Downey Jr. throughout his early career before he made the decision to get sober in 2003.
I was surprised to admit that when I was, locked down in a California correctional facility, I said, wow, this is really not panning out for me.
Yeah.
Maybe I should,
Kind of took a look around.
Number 2. Tatum O'Neal. Winning an Oscar for your film debut is an incredible feat. Doing that and becoming the youngest actor to ever win the award is doubly impressive.
Ain't you coming to the door with me?
There it is, right there. How much closer am I supposed to bring you?
I wonder how I got here.
Tatum O'Neal certainly inherited her parents' talent for performing, but unfortunately, her relationship with both her mother and father was fraught. Tatum's mother, actress Joanna Moore, lost custody of her and her brother Griffin in 1971 following a series of incidents relating to alcohol use disorder. Her father, the actor Ryan O'Neal, had issues all his own.
I did go everywhere with him. Gone to every party with him. I had drugs around me. You were going to learn all that behavior, and it gets really sucked into your DNA.
The two co-starred together in Paper Moon, but things deteriorated not long after. Ryan O'Neal's well-documented volatility led to a rift that saw the pair not speaking for the better part of 3 decades.
He holds you responsible for a lot of the things that happened to me. That's the problem.
Your son does?
Yes.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You'll have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Drew Barrymore. The Barrymore family ruled Broadway before expanding their acting empire to Hollywood. A dynasty that dates back to the 19th century, it meant that Drew Barrymore was only the latest in a long line of brilliant actors when she first emerged as a child star.
He interviewed me and he said, well, she has too much personality. So he said, we're going to interview, I'm going to make a movie and it's going to be E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Trouble started very early. Mostly left to her own devices by her mother, Barrymore's hard partying lifestyle at an incredibly young age meant that she was only 13 when she completed her first stint in a rehabilitation center.
I had nothing but freedom up until that point, dancing on tables at Helena's and Studio 54 and Limelight and every club on the planet and partying it up, doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and all of a sudden it was, you have no freedom, you will figure out your life.
At one point, she attempted to take her own life. It would take a few years and a legal emancipation from her mother for Barrymore to set things right. Decades later, her honesty and forthrightness about that time in her life is a reminder of just how much she's overcome.
Just recognize in all of us that we go through stuff. And it can't be embarrassing. It has to be our strengths. It has to be something that we can be proud of because we overcame it and we look back with honor.
Whose childhood story shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments.
He has done enormous damage on this planet. It is time to take a look at that.